Hello and welcome to Horse Sense, all the racing action and updates from Singapore and around the world. On this episode of Horse Sense, we have all the action from the Fortune Bowl Trophy and we catch up with David Raphael and learn all about the Melbourne Cup. The Singaporeans celebrated the Chinese New Year and ushered in the Year of the Rooster with delight at the Singapore Turf Club. The Fortune Bowl was formerly known as the Singapore Derby Trial and was later renamed to Fortune Bowl in 2010. The Fortune Bowl is a Group 3 race over 2,000 meters on the turf and is now held annually on the second day of the Lunar New Year. This year's renewal of the Fortune Bowl for 3 years and older horses to run over 1,600 meters had a small field of 8, with half of them trained by Ricardo Lagrange. Big Brother ran a super second to Guru Guru in the New Year Cup and showed he could measure up in such company and would have Nuresh Jaglal on his back. Time Odyssey had a disappointing 11th in the New Year's Cup and would be looking to improve on that pace with Glen Boss. Perfect P, ridden by Baron Boster and Cooptado, would have Oliver Placé holding his reins. However, champion trainer Alvin Tan came away with mixed feelings as he had 2 of his headline horses going around. Nova Strike, who was a winner in the Landex Cup Open on the 23rd of October 2016 and ran second in the Kranji Stakes A on the 20th of January, would be looking for a winning place with Manuel Nunes guiding him past the post, while Bring Money Home would have Saifuddin Ismail in the saddle. Argentinian-bred mare Fortune Winner was in flying form in the moment and trainer Letitia Dragon was hoping she could still catch the wave at the right time, as she has recently been racing in sprints with happier results. She had the services of Azhar bin Ismail on her back.
Time Odyssey, Glen Boss to ride. 1,600 metres and we're all set. Feature race today. John Pepe to let them loose, and the Fortune Bowl of 2:17, they're on their way. Blue Swede was the slowest away, and Cooptado in his swan song here in Singapore, very slowly away as well. And it's Big Brother, Time Odyssey and Nova Strike, the first 3 at this stage. There's no sign of Bring Money Home, who's being snagged back. He's gone back centre field, and it's Time Odyssey and also a Big Brother, who for the time being dispute the lead, but as stablemates of course, they're not going to cut their throats. And for the time being, it's Time Odyssey leading out from Big Brother on the rails. Then Nova Strike, who's just a little bit keen there. He's back in third in the red colours as they settle down. Cooptado's got himself going now. He's back fourth on the inside from Perfect P, a length and a half away. Further back then to Fortune Winner on the outside of Bring Money Home, ridden back today. And 2 lengths away then to Blue Swede, who's last of all as Time Odyssey heads down the side with 800 metres left to go. And it's Time Odyssey leading out a length and a half, Big Brother. Nova Strike on the outside is running third. Cooptado nice and close. He's fourth. Then Perfect P, who travels okay. Behind those Fortune Winner, Bring Money Home and Blue Swede sees them all on the point of the turn. 550 metres to go in the Fortune Bowl, and it's Time Odyssey held together by Glen Boss from Big Brother, who tries to level up. Now Nova Strike down the middle, warming up from Cooptado, Perfect P, Fortune Winner and Blue Swede the deepest runner. It's Time Odyssey just from Big Brother. 300 metres left to go, and it's Big Brother who's putting the pressure on Time Odyssey, who continues to give. Then Nova Strike about a length and a half away. It's Big Brother, he's laying in. Time Odyssey fighting very hard. Nova Strike still coming. Big Brother for Jaglal just in front. Time Odyssey kicking back on the rails. Big Brother just in front of the Fortune Bowl, and Big Brother gets home from Time Odyssey. Nova Strike back in third. Fourth, I'm not sure. We got Blue Swede or Bring Money Home from Fortune Winner, Perfect P.
This is a moment I've been waiting for obviously a long time, and I'm very humbled and very privileged, to be doing it here. I have to firstly say thank you to Patrick, for all the guidance and support over the years, to the Singapore Turf Club for granting me a license, to wonderful clients who've invested money in the yard and have showed me confidence. So big thanks to all the Thai guys. To Nuresh, I thought he rode a fantastic race. The second horse was very gutsy in defeat, and just really thrilled. I'm going to be bold enough to say I think he's another Derby horse as well. He's shown a lot of ability over a bit further as well. He's been unlucky in his last couple of starts. Things haven't gone his way, but he's gutsy, and he's proven it today. I just want to say one thanks to Jackie, who's my assistant back at the stable, and a great team of workers that just do all the hard work as well. From an emotion point of view, it's relief, but it's also just such satisfaction.
I must say big thanks to the team and to the Thai owner, you know. Very nice to have a nice horse for them, you know, especially like we say, it's a Chinese New Year, so nice for them. And yeah, the horse got big heart and he dug down deeply and won a very gutsy race today. We've been working hard for these races and we've been planning the horse in the right way, and big thanks to Ricardo and to Jackie that do an excellent job behind the pictures, you know, and now we're just a pilot, you know. We look good in the race, but all the hard work been done back at home. And yeah, big thanks to everyone. And again, this is for my mom. I told my mom that I'm going to ride the fortune ball for her, and I wish you go. Thank you very much.
First-year trainer Ricardo Lagrange saddled his first group winner after mile specialist Big Brother landed the $200,000 Group 3 Fortune Bowl. Big Brother was not flinching as he collared Time Odyssey, gaining the ascendancy in workmanlike fashion. Jaglal and Big Brother stuck to their guns to prevail by a neck. An Argentinian bred by Open, Big Brother has now registered all his 5 wins over the mile for stakes earnings that have now tipped over the $320,000 mark for the Falcon Racing number 3 stable.
I'd now like to invite Mr. Fong Yong Kien to present the prizes for the Fortune Bowl. The winning owner, representing the winning owner of Falcon Racing number 3, Ms. Chaya. The winning trainer is Ricardo Lagrange. Ricardo to come forward. And the winning jockey aboard Big Brother, who was Nourish Jaglal. Our congratulations to all the winners of the Fortune Bowl. Big Brother the victor. Please join us for a group photograph.
The Horse Sense team was down at the New Zealand sales, and there we caught up with David Raphael, the international racing expert, who explained to us exactly what the Melbourne Cup is all about, all the different facets, and why it is more than a race.
The Melbourne Cup is the greatest event in the world. There's nothing that compares to it. You can go to Wimbledon, American Open, British Open in golf. You can go to anything in the world that you want to go to, but there's nothing that compares to the Melbourne Cup. It's a must-do, once-in-a-lifetime event. If you've never been, and don't just turn up for the day. I mean, the Melbourne Cup's about all of Australia combining at that one moment. I've used the line before, if you ring anybody on Melbourne Cup Day, whilst the Cup is being run, no one will answer. And if they do, they'll tell you to shut up, get off the phone because the Cup's on. I mean, the whole country stops. For a week before, the whole city comes alive. You go to a parade the day before the Melbourne Cup and the city stops. About 150,000 people walk out of the office building, stand on the main street and watch all the contenders, all the jockeys and trainers go past. Everybody's out shopping. The numbers are just extraordinary. There's 600,000 or 700,000 people that attend over the days. With the different events, there's probably 400,000 people that turn up to the racecourse, but there's all the lunches and the dinners, and you can drink a lot, you can eat as long as you want, and it's just the greatest event in the world. And then they run a racehorse that's the greatest 2-mile handicap in the world. It's more than just a race. The Melbourne Cup's the biggest sporting event on the planet. It's trying to tell everybody the story of the event when you're broadcasting a Melbourne Cup. And as a race caller, you try to call the race as Greg Miles has done for so many years, and you try to call the race right and get the finish correct and all of those things. But as a broadcaster, you try to encapsulate everything that's happening around you. I mean, you can stand in the mounting yard on Melbourne Cup Day and to your right, there's a group of people stood out in the public lawn and they've pegged out their space with picnic baskets and champagne, and a boy's trying to meet a girl and a girl's trying to meet a boy, and everybody's trying to have fun. Behind you, there's a fashion parade where people have spent 6 months of their life making a costume to dress up and try and win a prize that they've competed nationally for, and they can win a flight around the world for wearing the best dress. Believe it. And then on the other side, there's marquees where people are networking and talking business, and not just talking about races, but they're getting together and they're quite often breaking deals worth multi-million dollars. And then on the other side of the fence, there's the breeder and the owner and the trainer talking about their horse that they're trying to breed to match a horse that's running in front of them on that day. And then on the other side, there's the members commingling that live it and breed it and love it. And then you throw in all the other aspects, the marquees that go for 400 or 500 metres where people fly around the world. I mean, rock stars turn up. The people that are there, the A-listers from around the planet, turn up to be there on Melbourne Cup Day. And this is all within the field of Fabulous Flemington. It is seriously bigger than a horse race. It's become one of the biggest events on the world. I think it's on the top of any must-do list in the world. If you love sport, you've got to go to a Melbourne Cup. I think to win a Melbourne Cup is the most important sporting event in Australia to put on your resume if you can say that you've won it. Christophe Lemaire won a Melbourne Cup many years ago. It's not that long ago actually, and for a Frenchman to do it was quite extraordinary. And he became the second Frenchman to do it. Gerald Mousset was the first with Americain. And Christophe tells a story. He won the Cup, he went to the airport that night, and as he walked into the airport, there were people everywhere getting on the plane. And he said he felt this sense of strangeness as he walked in. And as he walked a little bit closer to the gate, the crowd stopped and turned around and looked at him. And he's just a really quiet, really humble, insignificant guy if you didn't know who he was. And everybody stopped, even the staff at the gate, checking people in, and they stood up and they applauded. And they clapped him. He said it felt like for 5 minutes. He said, I was just going to get a plane. He said people stopped going through the immigration, the X-ray machines and through security. That's what the Melbourne Cup is to Australians. It's bigger than a race, you can't explain it. You know, a tennis player might win a Wimbledon or something like that, but the Melbourne Cup, there's only one cup, there's only one race. You can win the Cox Plate or a Singapore Cup or an Ascot Gold Cup, they are top of the trees, or a Breeders' Cup. They're amazing achievements, but a Melbourne Cup, it's more than a race. I can't put into words what it is to be in a Melbourne Cup winner. I've stood in the mounting yard, my greatest day ever at the races. My friend was riding a horse called Americain, Gerald Mousset, who's riding in Singapore. I stood in the mounting yard as Americain ran to the front. I always wanted to win a Melbourne Cup. I always dreamed of finding a horse. From that moment, everything I've been about is to find a horse that can win a Melbourne Cup. I'm not there yet. I will find one though.
We're going to step into a quick break here on Horse Sense. When we return, we continue our conversation with David Raphael.
Now there's a sense of quietness as you get into that hour before. It's like any big event. But when it's Melbourne Cup Day, there's 100,000 people there on the day and they're all having a party and a great time, but there's a descending hush over the crowd as you get closer to race time, and within 5 minutes of them walking into the yard, everybody's got their bets on, they're all getting into position, and then you're in that pressure cauldron of just sitting and absorbing and taking in, and you are a part of it. And I think that's why the Melbourne Cup is such a big thing. It's not just about the race being run in front of you. You talk to anybody about the Melbourne Cup and there's a feeling, I don't know if it's a goodwill, I don't know if it's energy, I don't know if it's the history that surrounds the event. But whenever you talk to anybody that's been at a Melbourne Cup, they remember where they sat, where they watched it from, the feeling they had when they walked into the yard. They watch all the horses walk around in front of them, and somehow we're all attached to what is in front of us. And then we talk about the Cup as a mark in time. You know, people will say, oh, what year was something happened? And the old timers will say, oh, that was when Galilee won the Cup. Was it 64 or 65? And you look in a book and, oh, it was in 66. You know, that's the sort of mark in time that it is. Ask anybody. Ask Laurie. He'll tell you. He'll remember where he was standing, where his mare went past the post in the Melbourne Cup Empire Rose. Ask him about the lunch he had with Bart. They're all the things that flow on. They all remember that he thought he'd won the Cup and he hadn't. Did the big salute and the high five, and that's the thing that everybody says. Oh, you thought you won that day. You know, there's so many stories like that. Malcolm Johnson, he went early supposedly on Kingston Town, took off, and he was there to win it. Gurner's Lane came from behind him and ran him down. He rode the horse exactly the way that he'd been told to ride him, exactly the way he'd ridden him, and champion jockey, one of the greatest ever, the first thing they say is, did you go too early on Kingston Town? Only cowards, he doesn't want to talk about it. You know, it's all of those aspects of the Melbourne Cup that make it bigger than a race. There's been some incredible finishes in the Melbourne Cup. One of the closest was when Bude was able to win. Lake Shin went early, and another came to run him down, and it was a nose. Not even that, it was a millimetre. But the 2016 Cup, I think it was one of the great, grab them by the throat, drag them to the finish line, lift them the last 100 metres. It was the most intense finish. It's one of the great Melbourne Cup finishes that we've ever seen. And on the moment afterwards, we can make it more flowery than it is. Joe's done the right thing and given the high five, but that's not a game, that's pure intention, because everybody that goes into it, they know what it is. Gerald Mossé I touched on before, he used to talk about the Melbourne Cup, it is just a handicap, and then he won it. I still remember after the race, he said that's the greatest feeling I've ever had, and this is a man that's been in Arcs and Derbies, he's won every major race in Hong Kong, he's one of the world's preeminent jockeys in multiple parts of the world. He won what he thought was a 2-mile handicap, and then he realised it's the Melbourne Cup. It's probably the greatest feeling ever you will ever get on a racecourse to win a cup. Now, 30 years ago we looked for a Melbourne Cup winner and we come to New Zealand and run around the paddocks and look for a stayer. Now we're scouring results in America, England, Ireland, even in Japan. South Africa, unfortunately not, but when horses are coming from Hong Kong as well, it tells you it's not just an Australian race now. The Melbourne Cup is the most important 2-mile race in the world. It's the World Championship over 2 miles.
And that's all we have time for on this episode of Horse Sense. We'll be back soon with more racing and more updates. And until we see you, goodbye and may the horse be with you.